Do you notice that across America? Beloved food brands like KFC, Burger King, and Subway are quietly collapsing. Red Lobster just filed for bankruptcy in May 2024, shuttering over 90 restaurants in a single week. Subway has lost over 3,000 locations in the past 5 years. Even Burger King is closing 400 more stores this year alone. But let's talk about human cost for millions of working class and retired Americans. These brands are most likely the only they can count on while money runs low. But now, even that's being taken away. Worse, many of these companies are laying off thousands, leaving workers jobless and families stranded, no health insurance, no backup plan. The US citizens are now facing a hard question. What happens when even the last cheap meal of America is no longer there to serve the one that needs it most? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And today we will reveal top 10 brands will collapse, lays off workers, and exit from US in 2025. Before beginning, let's ask yourself a question. If the food brands that once fed the poor are abandoning us now, then you think, what choices do we really have left in the future? Number 1. Burger King. Have you ever thought about the day when that burger you grew up on will suddenly disappear without a word in the last few years? Burger King has quietly slipped away from hundreds of American neighborhoods, leaving behind empty parking lots and many disappointed customers for a generation raised on the Whopper. This isn't just a fast food chain closing, but a goodbye to the sweet memories. At its peak, Burger King served over 11 million customers worldwide each day, in the US alone. The brand drew in an estimated 4 to 5 million daily diners, making it a staple for working families, night shift workers, and cash-strapped college kids who just needed something hot, fast, and cheap. But from 2020 to 2024, over 400 Burger King locations across the US shuttered their doors. In 2023, Tom's King Holdings, one of its major franchise operators, filed for bankruptcy, affecting over 90 restaurants. As marketing budgets were slashed and staff were laid off, customer service faltered. Dining rooms sat half-cleaned, fries went cold, and slowly, communities stopped coming back. What might be the reason behind the collapse of Burger King? We know it is losing market share to McDonald's or Wendys, but the deeper truth lies in a broader cultural shift. Gen Z and younger families now seek fresh, healthy options. Inflation pushed ingredient costs sky high, but Burger King couldn't justify the rising prices with quality. Corporate leadership failed to modernize the menu or connect with modern values. While their competitors evolved, Burger King stagnated. And the damage isn't just to the brand, but to the people who depended on it. More than 10,000 workers have been laid off or seen their hours cut. Most of them are part-timers, many without health insurance, in parts of the Midwest and South. Burger King wasn't just a choice. It was the only fast food within 10 miles. For some seniors, it was their weekly outing. For some kids, it was their birthday treat. Now, it's just another boarded-up building. If you've ever sat in that red plastic booth with your family, splitting a value meal to make the budget stretch, you know it's more than food. It's survival. And when even Burger King walks away from small towns, you have to ask, who's still standing with us now? But before you answer, you might want to see what's happening to another brand that once promised health, quality, and trust. Because next, we're peeling back the curtain on a company that served millions of fresh meals a day, until it all fell apart. Number 2, Subway. America used to promise us everything, but in 2025, even getting sandwiches could be a difficult task. We are talking about Subway, a brand that for decades was the go-to lunch of millions of middle-class and low-income Americans. But something's changed. And this time, it's not just about price, it's about trust. Do you still remember the day when Subway was so popular? It used to have over 27,000 stores in the US. That number has plummeted to around 20,000 now. According to Subway's own investor relations, the brand still serves about 2.5 to 3 million customers per day in the US. That's nearly a billion sandwiches a year. But under the surface, the cracks you haven't known about are growing deeper. From 2015 to 2023, Subway closed over 3,000 locations in America alone. Just numbers on paper. But you will feel it through empty storefronts where lunch used to be so simple and safe. It all began with the scandal that shattered Subway's image. A lawsuit alleging their tuna had no actual tuna in it, as reported by the New York Times. Suddenly, the healthy alternative started to look like a bold lie. Add to that criticisms of bland bread, soggy vegetables, and meat of questionable origin, and Subway's promise of fresh food was rapidly losing meaning. But this isn't just about one company. It's a symptom of something bigger. The fast food market has shifted. Customers are choosing clean, protein-focused meals, or they're returning to home cooking. Meanwhile, Subway lagged behind. No innovation, no adaptation, add in inflation, rising food costs, and a tangled web of franchise mismanagement. As a result, the brand that once thrived on simplicity is now buckling under complexity. The fallout hits hardest where help is already thin. Thousands of part-time workers, students, single parents, elderly workers lost their income. In poor neighborhoods where Subway was sometimes the only nearby food option that felt healthy, people are left with overpriced fried food or processed frozen meals. It's not just a lunch break that disappears, because with Subway gone, the idea that you could still eat semi-decently without breaking your wallet is also going to disappear. One retired bus driver in Detroit said it best that turkey sandwich after my dialysis was my one good meal a day. Finding anything to replace is a tough job. And here's what really stings. Subway was never a luxury. It was a compromise. A sandwich you could trust just enough to keep going. Now, that trust has quietly vanished. Follow it as a question. If even the most basic meal and also the right to eat healthily is walking away from America's working class, then who will be left to feed us next? Stick with us. Because the next one is the biggest food brand's name in the history, and you will not believe in its downfall. Number 3, McDonald's. What if the most familiar meal in America, your $5 lifeline when the pantry was bare, is now slipping away? McDonald's, once the unshakable giant of American fast food, is retreating in silence. With more than 13500 locations across the US and over 25 million meals served daily, McDonald's isn't just a fast food chain, it's a whole institution. For decades, it was the backup plan when grocery money ran short. It was the warm meal after a long, tired working day, the quick lunch between shifts, the treat you could afford for your children after payday. McDonald's used to be a symbol of consistency, until now. In early 2023, McDonald's announced a sweeping global restructuring, shuttering hundreds of US stores and laying off thousands of office and management staff. Internal reports revealed a harsh strategy: eliminate underperforming locations to cut losses. But behind every closed door is a shattered routine, a lost income, a vanishing refuge. These closures hit hardest in small-town America, the very places where McDonald's was more than food. In counties across the Midwest and Deep South, it was the only place hiring part-timers with no degree, the only hot meal you could afford without shame. When a store disappears, so does a piece of community life. Teenagers lose their first jobs, single parents lose night shifts, elderly locals lose a place to sit, sip coffee, and see familiar faces. And the result, over 100,000 hourly workers, most without benefits, have either been laid off or are now scraping by with reduced hours. Many have no safety net. One woman in Missouri said she now drives 22 miles to a Dollar General just to warm up a frozen dinner. It's not just about burgers. It's about being priced out of survival, about watching the last affordable meal option disappear while corporate profits soar. For millions, the glow of those golden arches was the last flicker of normalcy in an economy that no longer includes them. And yet, this might only be the beginning, because if a giant like McDonald's is pulling away from the people who need it most, what does that mean for the rest of America's food lifelines? We're now turning to number 4, and losing this one will make your day become more gloomy than usual. Number 4, Starbucks. The thing that made your city feel alive is going to disappear now. We are talking about Starbucks. Once a beacon of modern urban life, is quietly dimming its lights across America. With over 15800 stores nationwide serving nearly 7 million customers each day. Starbucks isn't just a coffee chain, it's a daily ritual, a shelter between bus transfers, a mobile office for freelancers, a second home for students, and for years, it was the one place where $4 could still buy a moment of calm. But that ritual is unraveling. From 2023 to 2024, over 100 Starbucks locations have closed across the US, with the company citing safety concerns, labor unrest, and declining profitability. The November 2023 system-wide strike, impacting more than 200 stores, exposed a painful truth. The brand that once stood for community is now being torn by internal conflict and consumer doubt. Behind every shuttered store is a deeper story. Over 10,000 baristas, cashiers, and cleaners are losing hours, benefits, or jobs altogether. Many were students, immigrants, single parents, those who saw Starbucks not as a luxury, but as survival, in cities like Buffalo, Seattle, and Oakland. The closures didn't just end coffee runs, they dismantled the last remaining spaces where people gathered without judgment, in towns losing their only Starbucks. Something bigger vanishes too, the illusion of progress, the feeling that you were still part of something current, now. Boarded up windows and silent espresso machines whisper of cities slipping backwards, where even coffee has become a class divide. And for millions who once defined their morning by that green mermaid cup, the loss is jarring. One worker confessed, "My first job was here. It felt like we mattered. Then they just erased us. The last affordable luxury is crumbling, and the message is loud." Even something as simple as a cup of coffee no longer belongs to everyone. But the next brand didn't just close stores, it erased trust. And what was supposed to be health may be the biggest betrayal of all. Number 5, Coca-Cola. You've probably had one today, maybe even two. That cold. Fizzy can of Coke that seems harmless, comforting. But what if that $1 soda has been quietly costing you more than you think? Coca-Cola is everywhere. Over 300 million servings are consumed daily in the US alone, enough for every American to have one, every single day. It's in lunchboxes, vending machines, gas stations, family cookouts, for decades. It's been a symbol of refreshment, of trust, but now it's a symbol of something much darker. In 2016, reports from Mexico and India revealed live scorpions and unknown substances found inside sealed Coke bottles, later traced to sanitation failures at bottling plants in the US. The company faced lawsuits in California for containing 4-methylamidazole, a byproduct of caramel coloring linked to cancer, while they quietly changed the formula in a few states. Millions of Americans continued drinking the same unaltered formula without warning. That's just what's in the can. But what about what's behind it? Since 2020, Coca-Cola has laid off over 12,000 workers globally. Thousands of those jobs right here in the US. From factories in California to offices in Atlanta. They called it streamlining. But for the warehouse worker or delivery driver who relied on those paychecks, it was devastation. And when this company cuts corners to protect profits, where do they cut first often? Quality control. Even more disturbing, in places like India and Africa, Coca-Cola has been accused of draining entire communities' groundwater, leaving villages without clean water, if they could do that elsewhere. Can we trust what they're doing with our water for many low-income Americans? A $1 Coke feels like the only treat they can afford, but with high sugar, artificial dyes, and controversial ingredients, that cheap soda might be doing quiet damage: kidney strain, blood sugar spikes, liver problems. A single ER visit from dehydration or sugar shock can cost over $2,000 without insurance. That's the kind of bill that breaks families. We grew up trusting Coca-Cola. We shared it with our children. It was always there. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe we got too comfortable, too blind. And if a company we drank with our parents is now putting our kids at risk, what else have we overlooked? The next name on this list might seem even more wholesome. But don't be fooled by the lettuce and wheat bread. What you're about to find out will make you question everything about your go-to restaurant. Number 6, Wendys. The burger that raised generations of working families is slowly disappearing and no one's talking about it. With more than 5,800 stores across the United States, Wendys feeds between 1.2 to 1.5 million Americans every day, over 500 million meals every year. Once the go-to for a quick bite between shifts, a hot lunch for seniors, or a drive-through dinner after soccer practice. Wendys now faces something darker: a quiet retreat across Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Georgia states where Wendys was practically born. Locations are shutting down. In 2023, widespread complaints emerged of moldy buns, undercooked beef, and greasy kitchens, all tied to poorly managed franchisees. Meanwhile, the company faced a class action lawsuit over low wages and harsh labor conditions. It wasn't just a food crisis, it became a trust crisis. The collapse isn't random. Ingredient costs are soaring. Franchise operations lack centralized quality control. and younger consumers. They're skipping traditional burgers altogether, choosing cleaner, faster, healthier alternatives. But behind the statistics lie the real consequences in small towns. A Wendy's closure means no more late-night meals for shift workers, no easy lunch stop for the elderly. Thousands of older employees already struggling to re-enter the job market are laid off with no notice. And for many communities, the loss of Wendy's means another vacant building, another piece of normalcy gone. A mother once said, "Wendy's was the only place I could afford to feed my son after a double shift. It wasn't fancy, but it was real. Now that door is shut." And as families return to empty lots where their favorite corner restaurant once stood, they're not just seeing lost meals, they're witnessing a quiet erasure of their own history. So, if you thought that was hard to swallow, the next collapse might leave you speechless. Number 7, Chipotle. There are things you expect from a brand that claims to serve real food, but buried under that promise, there's a trail of hospital visits, lawsuits, and broken trust stretching across nearly a decade. What if the food you chose because it felt safest turned out to be the one silently poisoning you with over 300 locations across the United States? Chipotle serves approximately 1.1 to 1.3 million people daily, totaling more than 400 million meals a year. That's not just fast food, that's mass-scale exposure, especially for college students, urban professionals, and health-conscious eaters who believed this was the cleanest option left. But starting in 2015, everything began to unravel. Over 100 people fell ill in multiple states: Ohio, California, Massachusetts, Virginia, after consuming Chipotle meals contaminated with norovirus, E. coli, and salmonella. The media dubbed it the worst modern food safety collapse in the history of fast casual dining. In 2019, Chipotle was fined $25 million, the largest ever fine of its kind by the Department of Justice, for failing to prevent these outbreaks. The damage wasn't just legal, it was viral. Footage of rats running across counters in Los Angeles and piles of unwashed containers in New York kitchens exploded across TikTok and Reddit, quietly shattering the brand's health-first image. These weren't isolated events, they were symptoms of a system spiraling out of control: rapid expansion, slashed training budgets, lax oversight, and an over-reliance on customers to self-serve from potentially contaminated ingredient bins. And the consequences go deeper than you think. A single tray of unwashed lettuce could send dozens to the ER. For vulnerable groups: diabetics, immunocompromised individuals, young students, it's not just food poisoning, it's a health crisis waiting to happen. Compounded by the fact that many of them thought they were choosing wisely, choosing clean. But when the brand that promised to protect you fails again and again, what's left to believe in the fallout hasn't made national headlines like it used to, but scroll through social media, and you'll find the quiet revolt, millions of views under hashtags like #ChipotleFail, #NeverAgain, #TrustBroken. People don't riot over burritos, they just stop showing up. And as we move into the next brand, the silence only gets heavier. Number 8, Duncan. It used to be just $1, a small coffee and a donut, quick, warm, and close by. For millions of working Americans, Duncan wasn't a treat, it was survival. But now that last affordable bite is slipping away. With over 8,500 locations in the US, Duncan serves nearly 3 million people every day, more than 1 billion meals annually. From factory workers to early shift nurses, it fueled a nation on the go, but the engine is stalling. In 2020 alone, Duncan permanently shut down 800 locations, with additional closures in 2023 hitting core areas like New York, California, and the Midwest. CNBC, restaurant business. What replaced those stores? Empty lots, boarded windows, and for some, more expensive convenience chains that never quite felt the same. The signs of decay weren't sudden. Hidden cameras revealed mice in storage rooms in Boston. Employees were caught placing dropped donuts back into boxes. Trash piled up behind counters. Each scandal chipped away at the one thing fast food depends on: trust. But the rot wasn't just in the tiles or trash bins, it ran deeper. Ingredient prices soared, and franchise operators struggling to stay profitable cut corners. Some skipped cleanings. Others compromised on product quality. Meanwhile, Starbucks, McDonald's, and local cafes offered better coffee, newer spaces, and a fresher brand image. Duncan, once dominant, was now outdated, and the consequences. They hit hardest where America bleeds in the early hours of the morning. Thousands of minimum wage workers lost their jobs, many without severance, most without health care. For the working poor, Duncan wasn't a luxury. It was the only breakfast they could afford, just steps from home or the bus stop. Now, that small comfort is gone in these neighborhoods. When Duncan leaves, nothing comes back. No brunch cafes, no artisanal bakeries, just higher prices, longer walks, and mornings that feel a little more unforgiving. You won't hear sirens when a coffee shop closes, but for some, it's the loudest silence of all. And as we take the next step into this vanishing landscape, one name in particular may surprise you next. Number 9, Papa John's. There was a time when $6 could feed the whole family. A hot pizza, a soft drink, and a little moment of togetherness for working class Americans. Papa John's wasn't a luxury, it was a Friday night ritual. But that ritual is disappearing. With over 300 locations in the US, Papa John's handles 1.1 to 1.3 million orders daily, serving over 400 million pizzas each year. Restaurant business, Statista. Yet, from 2022 to 2024, more than 250 stores quietly vanished, especially in Texas, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, once its strongest markets, Nation's Restaurant News. In 2023, the company's CFO confirmed a nationwide streamlining strategy code for mass layoffs of kitchen staff and delivery drivers, and the brand's reputation took another hit from long-standing internal scandals, including the founder's racist remarks that alienated millions of loyal customers. Behind the numbers is a systemic fracture. Ingredient costs are surging: flour, cheese, meat, all driving up prices or forcing toppings to shrink. Papa John's built its model on delivery, but now competes with giants like Uber Eats and DoorDash who slice into the profits. Meanwhile, inconsistent food quality across franchises has left customers feeling burned. The impact isn't abstract, it's deeply personal. That $6 pizza now costs nearly $25 with a drink. For families living paycheck to paycheck, Papa John's was often the only restaurant night they could afford. Now, it's off the table, literally. Thousands of part-time delivery workers have lost their jobs, many of them students, single parents, or retirees relying on the extra income for essentials like gas, rent, and medicine in lower-income neighborhoods. The closure of a Papa John's means one less affordable food option and one more step toward becoming a food desert. It's not just about losing pizza. It's about losing a routine, a memory, a sense of stability. That $6 pizza fed my whole family in 2008. Now it's $19 and our store's gone. My parents used to buy it every Sunday night. Papa John's is closed now and it feels like my childhood vanished with it. I delivered for them all summer. Then one day they let us all go, no warning, no goodbye. And just when you think the worst of it's behind us, another trusted name is about to fall. Number 10, Red Lobster. A bankruptcy, an $11 million loss over shrimp, a farewell without warning. Red Lobster's collapse didn't just close restaurants, it shattered a ritual, a reward, a place woven into working class memories. With over 650 locations across the US, Red Lobster once welcomed over 8 million guests a month, nearly 100 million meals annually. QSR Magazine, Red Lobster IR. But in May 2024, the chain filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and shuttered over 90 locations in a single week. CNN Business. These closures hit hard in working-class towns and aging industrial zones from New York to Texas, where Red Lobster was one of the last remaining sit-down restaurants. Ironically, the very promotion that once defined its charm, endless shrimp, helped drag it under. In one quarter alone. The all-you-can-eat deal cost the company over $11 million in losses, as diners consumed far more than anticipated. Bloomberg The Deal, intended to boost traffic, backfired in a time when supply chains were strained. Seafood costs had spiked, and margins were razor thin. But that's only one part of the slow-motion collapse. Behind the curtain, Red Lobster had become a corporate pawn bounced between private equity firms and global holding companies. Each new owner brought conflicting priorities, poorly integrated systems, and little loyalty to the brand's legacy. Managers on the ground struggled to stay afloat while executives played financial chess. Add to that the crushing cost of imported seafood, especially from Asia and Latin America, and the mounting pressure to maintain full-service dining in a market sprinting toward fast casual and delivery. Red Lobster's identity, traditional dining rooms, personal service, family ambiance became a liability in an age of speed, apps, and cutthroat pricing. But the real collapse didn't happen on a spreadsheet. It happened in neighborhoods. Tens of thousands of worker-servers, cooks, dishwashers have lost hours, benefits, or their livelihoods altogether. Many of them middle-aged, without tech skills or degrees, are now stranded in an economy that no longer knows what to do with them. Red Lobster was more than a paycheck. It was routine, family, a safe place. For some, it was the only job they'd ever known. For others, it was a stepping stone toward a better life. And for customers, the loss is personal. Red Lobster was a rare treat that felt rich without breaking the bank. It was a first-date restaurant for blue-collar workers, a retirement dinner location for union families, the only place some towns had for birthdays and anniversaries. Now those dining rooms are cold and dark, some replaced by predatory lenders, others by vape shops, and many simply shuttered their windows covered in grime, their memories fading. Mama picked Red Lobster every birthday. Now it's gone and I don't know how to tell her. That shrimp plate. It was my way of celebrating a good week. I didn't have much, but I had that. We lost our jobs and our memories at the same time. When a Red Lobster closes, it's not just seafood that disappears, it's the feeling that there was still a little place for people like us. And if even Red Lobster, once so proudly American, can fall apart like this, who's next? If a cheap meal can send you or your child to the emergency room, what's left to call affordable one by one? The brands that once fed America are disappearing. Quietly, no warnings, no goodbyes, just shuttered windows and pink slips. We're not just losing food, we're losing safety, routine, and memory. If you've ever eaten at one of these brands, share your story or warn someone you care about, because next time, it could be your town, your job, your dinner. In the next video, we'll expose which brand is next. Are we watching the last bite of America vanish,